So the object of friction firelighting is to rub two pieces of wood together and generate friction. So friction being the force that creates heat when we rub our hands together, just like this. So the same principle is employed in lighting a fire. So by rubbing these two pieces of wood, this piece of hazel and this piece of ivy together, we generate friction. That friction breaks down the wood, and then when the wood breaks down into a very fine dust that we call a coal, it will eventually start to smoulder. Now the wood we'll use today for the bow drill method will be a drill made from hazel and a hearth made from ivy. We're also going to use a bearing block. This is a piece of holly that's been split and then had a small depression carved in it using the tip of a knife. Now any wood will do for that. I normally use green wood, but today I'm going to use a limpet shell. We're very close to the coast here, so limpet shells are quite common. If we didn't have a limpet shell, we could always use green leaves mashed up in there, or possibly even a slug. Those very small slugs you find in the garden, mash one of those up, and that really helps to keep the drill spinning. Another thing we'll need is a bow. Now this is made from holly, but you can use any wood that has a little bit of a curve to it. So the first thing we need to do is to create a fireboard or hearth. So I'm taking this piece of ivy and I'm just going to flatten both sides out. I've actually made a start, so cheating a little bit today. So I'm just going to flatten both sides out using the knife. Always important to be cutting away from yourself. And we can use these shavings later on. Using the tip of the knife, I'm just going to cut some small semicircles. And the only reason we're doing this is just so that the drill stays in one place when we start to drill. Okay, that's the hearth board ready to go. The next thing we need to do is to shape the drill. Now I've chosen a piece of wood that's fairly straight anyway, but if you look along it you'll always see a few imperfections. Now if we can get this drill as straight as possible, it'll spin perfectly. If we have any wibbles in it, it'll spin and create a hole that's bigger than we actually need and allow cold air to get in and interfere with the firelighting process. So I'm just going to take the bark off. So I'm going to make it quite pointy this end, and that's fine. Now the end that we want to generate the maximum amount of friction, we put a bit of a rounded end onto that. So this is probably the most important thing of friction firelighting, is to get that good stable position to work from. So being right-handed, I'm going to put my left foot on the board. That allows me to put my weight straight down onto the work as I'm going. And now we take the drill. Now my favourite way to put the drill into the bow is to hold it with the point towards the palm of my hand, drop the string down onto the top, and then twist it in. It should be fairly tight. If it's too hard, you may find it just flicks out, and if it's too slack, it'll slip on the drill. So it needs to be just tight enough that when you pull it into position, it takes a fair bit of effort. And then once it's in position, it'll feel quite comfortable. Another little tip is to hold the string so that you can apply extra tension if it starts to slip. It's quite a useful technique. Now here's the bearing block with a limpet shell to reduce friction. Now if we didn't have a limpet shell, we could mash up some green leaves, put some wax, or even a small slug, anything to just lubricate this bearing block and allow this to spin freely. So luckily we have a limpet shell, which is about the best way to lubricate this end. Now getting into position, this is where it's really important to get your position right to begin with, because if you find your position's wrong, it'll be very uncomfortable and you probably will give up before you actually create a coal. So I'm just going to get started slowly. Now if you notice, my left arm is pulled tightly into my left leg. That gives it extra stability and extra strength, and it means I can hold the bearing block solidly and I can apply downward pressure without wibbling around. I'm just speeding up a little bit. You can probably see a small amount of smoke already. Okay, and that's the point we stop at. Now the reason we stop here is because there's one crucial ingredient missing from this. So we've created the depression, we've shaped the end of the drill, and we've shaped the hearth. But the thing we're missing is a notch. Now without a notch in the side here, all the dust will collect around the outside of the hole, and it'll cool down and we won't actually light a fire. So I need to cut a notch into the side of the hearth, and the notch should be about 1/8 of the hole. Then we have a glowing coal. And very carefully place the coal into the tinder bundle. Right, now this is where we just allow it to grow a little bit, just put some oxygen in. It always helps to have the wind coming from behind you, and it helps to keep the oxygen flow running through the tinder bundle. And it also stops the smoke blowing in your face, which is definitely worth considering. And there we have fire by friction.